A beautiful rainy day here in the Carolinas. I thought I'd go ahead and introduce a little project I think I'll take on. I've had this little Philco Transitone out in the shed for a period of years now. Thought I would break it out. We'll take a look at it and see what it will take to make this thing play again. So you can see it's a PT-25 Transitone. I think this is going to be the early version 121. The line cord, of course, is gone, and it looks like I'm missing the loudspeaker as well. I hadn't even pulled the schematic on this yet, so we'll take a look at it and see if this is going to be something even worth fooling with. The cabinet itself looks to be in good shape. It looks like I do have one hairline crack right here on this one side, and maybe a few other scratches, but not too bad to be 1939 or 1940. Neat little sets. Let's pull this thing out of the little case here, Bakelite case, and see what the chassis itself looks like underneath and on top as well. You can see the knobs here on the front of the radio are not correct for the receiver itself. And I think I've got some Philco knobs that are correct for the period, but they're actually ivory in color. Not bad, really. Let me just go ahead and get this out of the way before I do any more damage. So the original grill cloth. And we've got the plastic dial cover as well. Yell it up a little bit. That gives it some nice patina there, though. I like that. And we can take a look here underneath. And your typical Philco radio with all that rubber wire that everyone out there has faced in time. So just looking at it, looks like a complete rewire will be needed. And of course all the old, looks like original capacitors as well that we'll take out. One thing I'm going to need to look at real close, you can see the loudspeaker itself has been removed at some point. It was probably just a part set. So I think I'll go ahead and take time to validate the IFs. This is the antenna coil, and the second IF is located here, the oscillator coil here. So let's go ahead and test the antenna coil, the oscillator coil, and the IFs before I spend any time trying to do something with a loudspeaker. You can see the Teardown resistor here as well. We'll give it a quick check also. Let's get in here and remove the Loctite tubes. You can see the bump here on this side, so I'm going to just apply some pressure. I'm just using one of the tools from Harbor Freight to get up underneath the tube here and rock it back toward the little bump there. And I'm applying pressure on the chassis itself, not the tube socket. And it just released. So I'll go ahead and repeat that for the other tubes. Set those aside. We'll come back and look at the tube complement here in just a moment. Only 3 tubes were installed in the radio, so leaves me 2 here to locate on the schematic. Not a big deal. And ended up here with a little extra spring. Fell out as well. We'll see what that goes to. Possibly the dial string itself, be my guess. She's definitely a dirty little thing, but that's what you'd expect to be 80 years old. And just run everything through the ultrasonic cleaner. That is the tuning condenser anyway. Looks to be a little cruddy, maybe some rust as well that we'll need to remove. The tuning condenser is a little stiff, but it seems to be free up to about this point, and then it's somewhat seized up or locked up. I tell you folks, after poking around in here, this thing's in just horrible shape. You can see all the wires here that have degraded. That would be a complete short, probably on a B+ line to ground. If someone would have tried to bring this thing up, of course there's no loudspeaker, so there would be no point to do so. So I'm going to just take a few photos from above, and I want to just cut everything out of the chassis. I think we just start from scratch. Still snipping away, folks. And you can see indeed this is the model 121. Part of the back had that covered up. So this is the early version, or the first version, probably around 1939 or so. Getting this stubborn dial pointer off here without hopefully breaking it. The second IF transformer, which resides underneath here, removed. And you can just see how dirty that is. We'll clean it up and check it here in just a bit. Let me see if I can get a screwdriver underneath this clip here holding the oscillator coil on. There we go. And I think I've got a couple leads here to still cut underneath. We can free the oscillator coil. I left the mica capacitor attached here and just cut it off near the tube socket. That should help me identify the oscillator windings, or at least I'm hoping so. Getting that first IF transformer out of the way. Take note of the orientation of the wires, the color coding as well. Green here and red to the back side of the chassis. Another one that needs to be rewired as well. You can just see how frail the wiring is here. Just falls apart in your hand. And we've got the volume control out. On off switch. We'll check it as well. And just trying to free the antenna coil now. You can see there's a band there as well, holding it in place, just forcing it off, and then we'll pull it out and check it. And there we have the antenna coil that we'll check. It's amazing how simple these receivers were, and resistor wise, with the exception of the Candome resistor here. 7 resistors, if I counted correctly here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's what the schematic itself shows. I think I'll stop for now and just kind of clean up my mess. The Philco PT-25 actually has a electrodynamic speaker utilizing a field coil. I happen to have this used up Philco 4-inch loudspeaker. I may try to recone it. It's just a PM speaker. We'll have to add a resistor in place of the field coil, which I believe is around 500 ohms or so, if memory serves me correctly. But before we move along to this, we'll look back at the chassis here for the PT-25. Not much left of that. I'll clean up these solder connections offline. Go ahead and get the new resistors in place and start doing a lot of the wiring here. I've already tested all of the coils. Everything looks good. That is looking at DC resistance, and just get the wiring cleaned up, put it all back together and see if we can make this thing play again. A lot of work ahead. A lot of this will be done offline. Appreciate you guys following along. Take care and stay well.